I genuinely think one of the biggest Apple events in recent history is going to be happening in under a week. On June 10th, Apple is holding their annual Worldwide Developers Conference. And while this is something that they do every year, man, this year just feels different. And I say that because Apple themselves has been hyping this event up for months, because this event is when we're finally going to see what Apple's implementation of AI features looks like. We're getting a brand new version of iOS 18, an updated iPadOS 18, watchOS 11, macOS 15, a new version of tvOS, and our very first look at visionOS 2, which will show us what the future of Apple Vision Pro looks like. And for the first time in a while, they're going to be doing this without announcing any new physical Apple products. We are hearing that there is no new hardware coming at WWDC 24. Apple has so much to show us across their 6 software platforms now that everything we're getting is all going to be related to free software updates for all of our devices. So let's start off with iOS 18, which Apple internally has called the biggest iPhone update in history. And after you see everything they're changing, I don't think they're bluffing on this one. iOS 18 is rumored to look quite a bit different. And while it doesn't seem like it will be an iOS 7 level overhaul, like where Apple changed literally every part of the iPhone in the same year back in 2013, it sounds like iOS 18 is just going to be one notch under that. For the first time, your home screen in iOS 18 can be customized to exactly how you like. You can create different rows and styles and patterns of your app icons, and they're no longer locked down to the top default positioning. You can put all your icons at the bottom or do a circle if you want to make your icons look like that. But Apple's not stopping there. For the first time as well, you can also completely change the way that all of your icons look. With one rumor specifically saying that you can change the color of all your icons to a particular color scheme. So if you want all your finance apps to be green, you can make them all green, like this. Or if you want all of your apps to be a blue aesthetic, you can make all of them blue. And I especially think an all dark mode aesthetic with all of your app icons being black would look incredible. It sounds like you'll be able to easily theme your iPhone for the first time, which I've been personally wanting for years. And if this actually arrives on June 10th, I am going to lose my mind. By the way, if you're excited about any of these features, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I'll be diving into all of them next week when Apple releases them. Control Center also sounds like it will be getting some visual updates, with a new version of the music widget coming there and easier access to controlling some of your HomeKit accessories, which right now are kind of just jumbled together in a random way and don't make a lot of sense. And then there's all the apps that Apple is said to also be adding some nice UI tweaks to as well. One specifically mentioned is the Settings app, where Apple is rumored to reorganize the settings to make more sense and be less cluttered than it is currently, and also vastly improve search when you want to find a specific setting. But Apple's not just improving search inside of the Settings app. This is Apple's big AI year, so they're going to be improving search and finding content on your device across the entire system. And it sounds like that will mainly be happening with an entirely new version of Siri, what I would call Siri 2.0. Credible leaks and rumors are calling this new version of Siri the ultimate virtual assistant. While I've heard that promise in the past, I genuinely believe that AI is finally going to bridge the gap between what Siri has been and what we've always wanted the platform to do. Siri 2.0 is said to be more conversational and natural sounding than before. So when you ask your phone a question, it's not going to sound like an AI or a very one-sided conversation. It might feel like you're talking to another person. And for the first time, Siri's going to be able to control new parts of your phone, like in this report that says individual parts of applications can now have tasks done entirely by you just asking your phone. Things like opening documents, moving notes, sending or deleting an email, emailing a web link, or even asking your device for an entire summary of a news article, Siri can do like that. And most exciting for me is that Siri might be able to give good questions to answers that you ask now, because Apple has finalized a partnership with OpenAI, which has been doing absolutely crazy things with ChatGPT to supply Siri and your iPhone with data from the leading AI thing that exists right now. All this sounds incredibly cool, but Apple's also the privacy and security company. So how is Apple going to maintain that when they're sending AI requests off to servers? Well, Apple is apparently taking this very serious and employing some black box computing techniques, where when you send an AI request off to a server, like the new version of Siri, it is going to use a secure Apple chip in an Apple server house that will store information about the request on a secure part of the Apple silicon chip powering it, so that not even Apple can see what you're up to because it's encrypted and locked down to a piece of hardware. It's a completely different approach that everyone else has been taking by just sending data to servers and back as fast as possible. Apple has built essentially a dome around it to protect that processing as it's happening. But to be fair, this will not be a perfect system, and quite honestly, anything that Apple builds into the iPhone now just isn't enough anymore. Because if you've ever used the internet, there's actually this entire conglomerate of companies companies called data brokers that have probably been actively harvesting and selling your information, likely without you even knowing. I didn't know that things like my name, social security number, previous location history, browsing data, login credentials, and more were being profited from. It turns out you can reach out to these companies individually, but they've made it so hard and challenging to do that it's just impractical. So that's why I've partnered up again with Incogni, who sponsored today's video. See, with their service, they reach out on your behalf to all of these data brokers and ask them to get rid of your information, because it's your right to do that. They have to comply, and there's a great portal on Incogni's website where you can see all of the open requests, what's been completed, what's in progress. And I've personally gotten so many less spam calls, which is a huge problem here for people like me in the United States. It's been incredible. And listen, right now, when you use my link down below in the description, incogni.com/AppleTrack, you save 60% on an annual plan with code AppleTrack. Thank you again to them for sponsoring. Now, let's get back to it. Genuinely, it does sound like the new version of Siri in iOS 18 is going to finally actually maybe be good, but it is one of those things that I will just have to believe to see. Although Apple, in their event invitations, does seem to be hinting pretty strongly at Siri, with a very clear hint at the new Siri animation in the artwork. But what about all the other AI features coming in iOS 18, of which there are a lot, pretty much going to be built into all of the apps on the iPhone? Starting off with Safari, Apple's been working on a new AI browsing assistant that can summarize things on the page or give you more information and context about what you're looking at. It's also going to be getting some visual updates and maybe even a native ad blocking feature built straight into Safari. The Messages app in iOS 18 is going to be a lot more fun, with AI giving you some cool auto replies and suggested things to say when somebody texts you, as well as some really fun stuff, like the ability to now AI generate custom emojis, which is going to make texting so much more fun. There's new text effects on the way, so rather than animating an entire text that you're sending, you can animate individual words. The email app is also going to be getting some similar upgrades, with your iPhone being able to auto-suggest replies, which sounds really nice to buzz through your inbox. Next, in Apple Maps, they will finally be supporting custom routes, so rather than taking the auto-suggested pathway to walk or drive, you can now set the exact route that you always take if you prefer a certain street. And topographic maps, like on the Apple Watch, are also coming to the iPhone Maps app. The Photos app might be getting some of the most obvious AI features, with the ability to edit photos in an entirely new way by taking things out. The Calendar and Reminders apps are going to be getting married, so that they work together and they no longer feel like two entirely separate entities that never talk to each other. Inside of the Notes app, there could be new features for solving math equations, as well as the ability to record voice memos directly in there, like during a lecture, and the AI on the iPhone can now transcribe those voice memos nearly in real time. Even the Apple Music app is going to see some new AI features, with a on-device recommendation for what songs you might like to listen to, which is great considering that the current Apple Music algorithm just is not very good. All of that being said, I do have some really bad news for a lot of these AI features that I just mentioned, is Apple is said to limit a lot of the on-device processing features to only the iPhone 15 Pro or newer. So if you have an older iPhone, you'll likely be getting some of these new AI upgrades, but a lot of them, Apple's going to want you to not only just buy the iPhone 15 Pro, but the new iPhone 16 AI lineup later this fall, which is definitely very frustrating. But as AI is pretty processor intensive, I also get Apple wanting to push things pretty far, and they need the fastest processor to likely do that. So adding up the new design changes, the new version of Siri, and the new AI features together, there is just no doubt that iOS 18 on the iPhone will be the biggest iPhone update in history. But what if you use an iPad? Because Apple will also be releasing iPadOS 18, which without a doubt will get almost every single one of these features that we mentioned on the iPad as well, as at the end of the day, iPadOS is basically just a blown up version of iOS. Apple has already shown off some crazy features for the iPadOS 18 update, like eye tracking becoming native to iOS without any additional hardware. Funny enough, one of the specific rumors we have heard for iPadOS 18 is that the iPad is finally getting a calculator app. For the first time in Apple's history as a company, they are making a native Apple design calculator app. But any other changes that Apple will be making specific to the iPad this year are a complete mystery, with no credible sources saying anything about the software getting a major overhaul or a significant revamp like a lot of us thinks it needs. If I had to guess, Apple's going to add a couple new features to iPadOS 18, and that's going to be the end of the story. Similar to what Apple is planning to do with the watchOS 11 update. As last year was the major watchOS 10 update that changed pretty much everything from the visual design to the way that apps looked and worked, this year is going to be a lot more muted. But we have one mention of a feature that I think could legitimately be game-changing for the watch. Because with watchOS 11, Apple said said to be bringing that new version of Siri from the iPhone directly to your wrist, which at first doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but the only thing I can think about is all of these other AI voice command gadgets that we've seen pop up over the past couple of months. Like these wearables where you just press a button and ask a query, and then in a couple of seconds you get a smart response. Well, if Apple puts this new version of Siri on your wrist, I just don't see a point for any of these other devices that are ChatGPT but wearable when Apple could just put ChatGPT Siri on the product you already own for free. Apple has the connectivity built in. They've got the processing power on the fastest Apple Watch, and this new version of Siri is even said to be optimized for on-the-go tasks. It seems like all the pieces of the puzzle are already here just waiting to be enabled, which if Apple pulls this off and natively you have access to the entire internet and smart AI responses, that is going to be a big deal. For the rest of the watchOS 11 update, there are said to be improvements coming to the fitness app, but pretty much everything else is said to be relatively minor, again, after the major overhaul last year. This now brings us to the Mac and what's coming with macOS 15, which we don't have a ton of details about aside from the fact that it's getting the new version of Siri. It'll have a lot of these similar changes for AI that Apple is putting into iOS and the watch, but it is specifically mentioned that the Mac is getting a completely redesigned settings app that will be similar to the iPhone. Apple is making changes there to make things more relevant. macOS 15 is also said to be adding a new version of the Apple Calculator app on here, which the current version is super basic and limited, so that will be nice, but that is all that we have heard about that Mac update. That leaves us with tvOS and visionOS. For tvOS, which is what runs on the Apple TV, there really hasn't been a lot of talk of any changes there, but I'm sure there'll be a couple of minor things that Apple adds. No, what I want to end on is visionOS, which is the software that runs on Apple's $3,500 Vision Pro headset. And as this product is in such a weird spot, being so expensive and so niche, I was fascinated to learn what Apple is changing. The answer is not what I had hoped, which is sort of just playing catch up, according to a report. For example, 2 of the virtual environments on the Apple Vision Pro are still not here months after launch and just say coming soon on the actual home screen. The device launched with a number of apps optimized for the new design language of visionOS, but others of Apple's own apps are just iPad versions with no changes whatsoever. That is said to be getting fixed in visionOS 2. Maybe the coolest new feature coming is a live speech option, which Apple has classified as an accessibility feature. So as someone is talking, you can see in a text box directly next to them exactly what they're saying in real time. visionOS 2 is also said to update the Apple Mindfulness app with the ability to monitor your breathing using the cameras in some way. So it'll be able to track your respirations and give you information about that, maybe to help you meditate better. We don't have any other leaks for visionOS 2 though that sound genuinely transformative. Not to say that Apple isn't going to surprise us with something, but not hearing about much beforehand is a bit worrying, as this product is not something that I really use all that often currently. Nonetheless, all of these software platforms together, all 6 of them, I believe are going to make this the biggest WWDC ever, if not in a really long time. Like, we are in for a crazy event with Apple reinventing the iPhone, with them adding some crazy things with Siri and also adding some nice updates to their other platforms as well. And I'm so excited because WWDC, this annual event, is always my favorite. It is really when I started seriously making videos on my YouTube channel. And you can go back to the early days of AppleTrack when I used to call this iUpdateOS and see me going hands-on with iOS 7 back in 2013 when I was literally just a kid. And it's crazy because somehow my excitement has not changed since then, and I am just, I guess, an insane person. But that's who you're watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you're excited for next week as well, where I will be covering all this, so subscribe in case you haven't already. Okay, I've been Sam, I hope you're doing well, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.